The rain started falling just after sundown, soft at first, like a whisper brushing the leaves, then harder, thickening the silence in the streets of Fairbridge, a small town tucked between rolling hills and quiet regret. Neon signs flickered under the gray sky, and the few cars still out on the road left long, shimmering streaks on the wet pavement. It was a place where routine was religion, where nothing unexpected ever seemed to happen, which was exactly why the officers on DUI checkpoint detail didn't expect that tonight would end differently. On the edge of town, a rusted blue 1967 Dodge truck eased onto the highway, its headlights dull but steady. Behind the wheel sat Emit Langley, 79 years old, a man most people didn't even realize was still alive. He lived alone at the very end of Maple Hollow Road, with a mailbox leaned to one side and the front porch sagged in the middle. Locals called him Old Man Emit, though not cruelly. He wasn't a legend, not even a mystery, just someone forgotten. He never caused trouble, never talked much, and rarely left the property unless it was to buy groceries or gas. Every morning, same time, same routine, coffee on the porch, worn hat on his head, eyes scanning the road like he was waiting for something that never came. But tonight, Emit wasn't watching. He was driving, and beside him, secured with an old leather strap, was a metal case. Nothing fancy, just aged aluminum with a few dents, a government-style clasp, and a silence about it that made it seem heavier than it looked. Emit kept glancing at it every couple of minutes, not fearfully more, like a man measuring the weight of memory. The flashing lights of the checkpoint loomed ahead, breaking the drizzle with red and blue urgency. Officers wave cars through or pull them over for quick checks. Standard procedure. Emit's truck rolled to a stop where a young officer motioned him down. Officer Tyler Gaines, new to the department, maybe 30 years old, boots still too shiny. He leaned into the window, his rain-soaked hat dripping onto his collar. "Evening, sir. License and registration, please." Emit handed them over with no fuss. His hands were steady. The officer glanced inside the cab, eyes pausing on the case strapped into the passenger seat. "Mind if I ask what's in the box?" There was a pause. Not long, but long enough to be noticed. Emit looked the officer in the eye. "It's not for you. It's for the Bureau." That was all he said. Officer Gaines straightened slightly. His training didn't cover cryptic answers from elderly men with strange cases. He asked Emit to step out of the vehicle. Emit nodded once and complied. The rain slicked his shoulders, but he didn't seem to feel it. Another officer came over, Sergeant Lucas Fenley. They asked again about the case. Emit's reply was firmer this time, but still calm. "It's not dangerous, but it's not yours to open." That did it. The refusal alone wasn't grounds for arrest, but the oddity of the situation and the unyielding silence raised alarms. They handcuffed him. Gently, respectfully. Emit didn't resist. He kept his eyes on the case as they placed it in the back of the second patrol car. The Dodge was searched. Nothing illegal. Just the case. No weapons. Nothing suspicious beyond that one item. But it was enough. Emit was placed in the back of a cruiser and driven to the station. He didn't speak once on the ride. The officers talked quietly up front, unsure if they were dealing with a confused veteran or someone with deeper shadows. At the station, he was processed like anyone else. Photos, prints, basic forms. His military veteran ID was noted, placed carefully back in his wallet. The metal case was tagged and locked in the evidence room under a generic entry. Personal property refused inspection. In the holding room, Emit sat on the bench, hands folded in his lap, posture straight, eyes fixed ahead. Not nervous, not angry, just waiting. Back in the main office, Officer Gaines entered Emit's name and ID number into the system. And that's when it happened. A flash on the screen. Then a new interface. Not one the department had seen before. A brief message appeared. Secure the individual and item. No questioning. Stand by for federal response. The text vanished almost as quickly as it appeared. Officer Gaines stared, unsure if it was a glitch. He called over Sergeant Fenley. Together, they tried to replicate the result, but the system now blocked access. Another message loaded. Authorization level Delta 4. Do not interfere. The room stilled. No one spoke. Sergeant Finley picked up the phone and called the state liaison. No answer. Dispatch tried again. No luck. Then the phone rang. It was a federal line. Direct. Agent Cassandra Wolf, Federal Bureau of Investigation, informed the station that a team was en route. Estimated arrival, 27 minutes. No further action was to be taken. The man in custody was not to be touched. The case was not to be opened. No explanation was given. Outside, the rain had become a light mist, the street lights glowing dim in the moisture. The younger officers had gathered near the front, watching from the windows. They weren't used to this level of secrecy. Rumors began swirling: spy, defector, traitor, but no one spoke loudly. It didn't feel right. Inside the holding room, Emit hadn't moved. Not an inch. When the black SUVs finally arrived, 6 of them, identical, unmarked, everything in the station seemed to hold its breath. The agents that stepped out moved with quiet purpose. No wasted gestures. No chatter. They were dressed in dark coats, communication wires barely visible behind their ears. Agent Wolf entered first. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, voice like steel under silk. She identified herself, showed credentials, and asked for Emit Langley and the case he brought in. They walked down the hall to the holding room. Wolf opened the door. Emit stood up before being asked. "You kept your word," she said softly. Emit nodded. The door closed for 5 minutes. No one knows what was said. When it opened again, Agent Wolf declared that Emit was to be released immediately. He was not under arrest. He was to be treated as a protected federal asset. The metal case was retrieved from evidence under tight security. Inside, it held more than anyone had guessed. Aged government documents, photos with redacted faces, a drive labeled with outdated agency ciphers, and a flat black object that even Wolf looked at with rare reverence. This, she said, was part of Emberfall. That meant nothing to the officers. To the Bureau, it meant everything. A project so deeply buried, it was rumored to be legend. A Cold War-era intelligence initiative involving field agents embedded so deeply they were forgotten even by the systems that birthed them. Emit hadn't just been an old man. He had been a courier, one of the last human fail-safes in an operation meant to resurface only when the right signal was given. The signal had come 3 weeks ago. Emit had waited over 4 decades for the clearance. And tonight, in a quiet, rain-drenched town, he had delivered it. The agents escorted him not like a prisoner, but like an honored guest. As they exited the station, the officers stood silent, their eyes tracking the man who just hours earlier they'd thought was a harmless oddball. Back at his home a few days later, life resumed its rhythm. Emit drank his coffee on the porch, drove the same truck into town, picked up groceries, waved at neighbors. But something had shifted. There was no press coverage, no medal ceremony, no parade, just silence, and a small wooden box that arrived by courier one Sunday afternoon. Inside, a folded flag, a letter, a black and white photo of a man in uniform Emit's partner from long ago. The letter read, "The file you delivered was the missing link. His name and yours are now restored in the Federal Archive. Your promise held. Your mission is complete. With deepest respect." Emit placed the box on his mantle. And that was the end of it. No more missions. No more codes. Just a man, a porch, and the quiet kind of peace only those who've carried secrets can truly understand.